Oh, I hope that my readers feel the same way with what I've done with book 2, which hopefully will be coming out this year. It's blown people away, and it's got one of the best ratings and reviews out of all of my rest of my 8 books. Illusional Reality has just blown the water out of all of them. And
now, what genre is it? Is that
it's fantasy? It's romantic fantasy, paranormal, supernatural, romance, bit of everything, adventure, thriller. But I'm hoping, I feel, and that my beta readers, they think what I've done is okay. They haven't turned around and said, oh, but you don't mention him again until the middle of the book, if he's in the middle of the book. I'm not giving anything away. So I hope I've done the right thing, but I've definitely done the same thing as what you were saying that the author of Les Mis did. But I feel that the beginning of the book you don't need to know about what happened in the first book, because there is so much going on in the first half of the second book that it's not that you can't forget, because she doesn't, I don't, and she doesn't let you forget about.
Yeah.
Well, as a reader, if that's part of it too, because I mean, if you've got, like, if the other characters are still wondering or still mentioning or still invested,
he's still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't know whether he's still alive or not, as a reader, I'm reading this and going, okay, what's going on? You know, where is he? And so you're still invested too. So that's okay from my point of view.
All right, I'm happy with that then.
It's like what I think we were talking about is when they do a cliffhanger, and then the next book picks up like a year later or whatever, and everybody's okay. And then all the action and all the stuff and all the drama happened off page.
Yeah.
No, that's wrong. That's so wrong.
Why? You have that is like writing gold. And it's funny because when I first started writing, I did that a lot. I was like, oh, well, all the drama and the really good parts never happened. And I was going to publish my first book like that, where all this great backstory was just backstory, and it was the secret mystery stuff. And one of my beta readers said, what's this backstory? So I filled him in. I told him the story, and he goes, why is that not in the book now? Well, it comes
you don't leave something like that's like the meat. That is the meat of the story. You don't want vegetarian. They're not vegetarian. They want the meat. You know.
It was beautiful. And when I did decide to go back in and put it in, first of all, I was finally writing things that I had wanted to write and had planned on not writing for a good 7 to 10 years. So to finally being able to write those things was great. The second part of all of that is it completely redirected the story. It completely changed what it became. And no, since then, I'm like, no, never again. Never again. If it's a good, solid drama, you put it in the book. You show them.
Okay, so I said before that I actually spoken to a couple of readers to get their viewpoint over. One of them are the same as how we feel when we actually read a book, that we do use books as a way to escape. We want to be that character in that story. We want to play that role. And she said the same as we said, like that. The readers want to be swept up. They want to be taken from reality, and they want to be able to visualize being in that moment, either with that character or as the character. They need the characters to be relatable. It doesn't mean they have to like them, but they need to be realistic, whether it's a fantasy or not. I mean, fantasy, anything is make-believe, anything is believable, so that doesn't really matter. But they use reading as a way to escape, wanting to forget everything except they want to be so glued to the page that someone literally has to come and drag the book from their hands. If an author does that to that reader, then you've got that connection. You've sold, you've got that fan then. That's what they want. They want to be so glued to the pages that someone literally has to rip the book from their hands. One person actually said that it's the imperfections of a character that actually make the character relatable. Because no one is perfect. You write about a perfect character, it's not believable. It's not life. So the more imperfections that a character has, the more relatable the readers are to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a problem I had with my elves. Elves are always designed and thought of as being perfect, godlike beings. But I wanted to write with elves for a million other reasons. And I was immediately confronted with, are they going to be perfect as seeing and envisioned like a lot of people think, or am I going to really mess up these elves and make them look human-like? And it was interesting. I decided to give them a lot of flaws. And the more I did this, I had people going in going, oh, well, those aren't elves. Yes, they are elves because they've got all these other attributes. Yeah, but elves are human-like. You as a human have put them on a deity status. That doesn't mean they're without flaws.
That's Token's fault. Blame Token. He's the one that did it.
Well, I want to say it was Tolkien, and that is what I was up against. But this is interesting. We are human, and we are looking at a superior being through our own eyes. So naturally, we're going to look at these creatures and go, they are everything I've ever wanted to be. It's that grass is always greener. Now, my story is different in the sense where you are the elf, and you are looking down at the human. And the way I paint the humans through their point of view is the humans are weaker. They almost appear very sick because they are limited on strength. They're limited on so much that they do come off as being constantly ill, constantly diseased. And you can, as an elf, you can still see all of their imperfections, but there's no deity status anymore. That's gone now. So it was really interesting to see my readers come back and perceive that. They are relating to the elves, but they're not. They're now telling me that, oh, they're humans. No, you're a human.
They're not connecting them to elves, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you do forget, oh, yeah, these are elves. And it's really interesting to play the psyche on the readers to see how readers take it. And one reader came back and she was explaining the book as they are elves with very human problems. And it was just very, very interesting to see. Some people had a huge backlash with it where they were upset about the way I portrayed the elves. Other people said that they didn't see them as being elves, or they forgot too quickly that they were elves. And it's not really important whether or not they are. As long as you remember that they're separate and that they are not the same as humans. It really doesn't matter. But it was really interesting to see them put these elves psychologically on a pedestal. And it was very, very interesting how we've deitized them.
I love the idea of taking something that everyone knows as being that, because that is what they are in every single fantasy story, and doing totally the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
Not even using the title of an elf or a troll,
mm-hmm.
but having it have the likeness to an elf or a troll, but instead of the troll being bad, maybe being good, the elf being good, maybe being bad. But this is what I love about fantasy, because as I just said, anything you write about, you could have a new spell, which all of my stuff in my book, I have the names, the places, the spells, the food, everything is original. You won't hear of an elf, you won't hear of a wizard. There's no such thing as that in Illusional Reality. And I love fantasy because anything you write is believable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do it right, then the reader has to believe. They have to feel, again, you have to have imperfections. I have Fire. Gosh, no one could come close to Fire. You can't kill her, okay? She lives forever. There's no way of killing her. She has the biggest range of magical powers you can think of. But then she's stubborn. She's selfish. she's moany. You know, you have to have that imperfections to a character for the reader to be able to relate to your story.
One of the things that you were saying, Karina, with reading back what the readers had said, it was they have to be imperfect, they have to be likable, they have to be relatable, and you have to use them to escape. So,
not necessarily likable. You could hate a character,
right.
But if you hate a character, you're still invested in that character.
Right. But it's the I need to escape and I need to relate. And there are certain circumstances where when I relate, I stop escaping. So at what point does it go too far with the relating versus the escaping?
I think that's when a book can really affect a reader, is when it does get too close to being real to what they have gone through in their own life. When they're reading something and they can connect too close, that's when, I don't know, maybe they just get too attached, too involved in the story. That can be a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, I write my story, especially about the MC thrillers, to get closure. I wrote them to get closure from my past. And I hope that some people that do read it have needing the same closure, you know? So there is too much. I think there is too much, like you say, too much relatability can be a bad thing as well.
Yeah, it can. But those are the books that you remember, though, I think, the most.
Yeah, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
No, this is true, too. There are a few books I will never read again because they disturbed me in some way. Yeah. And then there are some books I'll never read again because I like them so much. It's like you don't want to disturb the first time reading.
Oh, I have never had that feeling before. I've never heard of it either.
No,
I love a book. I will read it over and over and over again.
Most books I'm like that too, but there's one or two books that they were so. The first time I read it, it was so emotional and so powerful. I'm leery to read it again because I'm afraid I'm going to ruin the memory.
What book is this?
Yeah, tell me.
This one is it's called Tigana by Guy Gabriel Kay. It's the first book I read of his, by the way, and I've read pretty much all. Well, there's a couple I haven't read yet, but I am going to. He is just fabulous. His writing, he writes alternate history, sort of mixed up with fantasy. But this book, I read it, and it's like by the end of it, it's like I was an emotional wreck after reading it, because the ending is, and you probably find most people who have read it will say similar things, because his books are really emotional and really powerful, and they're just fabulous, though.
Yeah, I had two books that I was legitimately emotionally pushed to my max. I will never read them again, but I did not enjoy them. I really, and that was, I'm going to tell you right now, it was The Notebook. I did not watch the movie. I read the book, and the book was just, I cried for.
I haven't done both. I haven't read it. I haven't watched the movie.
I won't watch the movie. I won't watch the movie.
Yeah, I've seen the movie. I haven't read the book. And
then the other one is The Green Mile with Stephen King.
Oh, I love that. Love the film. Haven't read the book, but love the film.
I've done both. I've watched the movie and read the book. Completely different. With the one thing they really took out of the movie was Tom Hanks's character walks away with a very spiteful behavior, mentality toward the world. He's very resentful and he's just miserable. And there's this epilogue that just keeps going. I don't know. It seems like it was the part that really stuck with me emotionally the most was the epilogue, where he explains that because of whatever it was John Coffey did to him, he had prolonged life. And he just talks about how miserable it made him having this prolonged life, that everyone and everything around him kept dying and he just kept going on. And it was just, I was crying. It was very, very emotional. And I wanted to die afterwards. It really left you with the wrong experience afterwards. I did not enjoy the book at all.
The only book I read and I felt I didn't enjoy it, but I read it to the end. And then I said to myself, I'm never, ever reading it again. And I'm never, ever going to read any, because there was some more books following that. It was because I related too much to what was going on in the book. And I was too close to it. And that's why it will always, always be there in my mind, that book and what happened in the book, and why I will never pick it up again, because I got too close. It was just too relatable for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't, both of that's exactly, with both stories, I escaped, and I escaped in a place that was actually, I didn't want to be. I did not want to go where the books took me. And I'm trying to figure out if there was ever a book that I loved going in that book, and I just kept going back to it. Nope. No, I would love to have that experience, Anita.